Okay, as a quick addendum, as a fan of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy TV series, it has always irked me that we never got a second series, and it's not like there wasn't a move to produce one. It got relatively decent viewing figures, by BBC Two standards at least. For years I had always assumed that because Adams was not overly happy with how the secondary phase panned out, owing to the hurried way it was written and produced, any second series on television would have not been an adaptation of the secondary phase, but would have, in all likelihood, been essentially a visualization of life, the universe and everything. However, it must be remembered that in 1981, Life, the Universe and Everything was a whole 12 months away from publication, which, in Adamsian terms, meant it was a whole 11 months before he would have even started writing the thing in all likelihood. In 81, it was still in the gestation period, so who knows what the second series would have ended up being. Interestingly enough, we can glean a slight idea from Adams' papers, portions of which have been published in Jem Roberts' biography, The Frood, where he noted down some of the concepts he was at least toying with at the time. Amongst these ideas, there are a couple of holdovers from the primary and secondary phase, like forest toupees and the Hagenenons. Apparently, early pre-production did get as far as a call being put out for leopard-like costumes to be tailored. Original ideas included such concepts as the Drubbers, a planet where you explode if you get too happy, a dissertation on how astrology can work if you're travelling the universe, the president who is paid to take the blame for everything, a man who is brought out of deep sleep every 20 million years simply to perform one sole function, the monks who will believe anything for a day, a possible precursor to the electric monk in Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency, and an idea which did actually strike me as quite amusing, if it was to be mined for all its Python-esque absurdity, that of a warship with a broken hyperdrive that tries in vain to keep a sense of battle alive and vibrant over the countless generations it takes to reach its destination. The ideas which would eventually find their way into Life, the Universe and Everything included such concepts as the ultimate truth drug, the return of Slarty Bartfast, flying lessons, a note to Build Up Trillion, and the Cricket Men. Another interesting note simply says, "Get rid of Zaphod's second head." Adams was clearly dissatisfied with the way the animatronic head had turned out in the series, and it's interesting that the concept of a single-lobe Zaphod was being toyed with as early as this, given the way the character was eventually visualized in the movie from 2005. There is even mention amongst these early notes of the legend, "We apologize for the inconvenience," but no indication that this was meant to be God's final message to his creation. In amongst Adams' papers, there even exists a first draft for episode 1 of series 2. My assumption that a second series would largely follow the events of Life, the Universe and Everything were further compounded when I finally read what was included in this script. Aside from Arthur and Ford dropping the towel in the lava only for Zaphod to discover its fossilized remains in the asteroid after the destruction of Earth, thus facilitating their escape from the secondary phase, and Arthur and Ford escaping through eddies in the space-time continuum on a sofa and ending up at Lord's cricket ground from Life, the Universe and Everything, Adams provided a third escape method from prehistoric Earth in the aborted script. After a protracted introduction featuring survivors from the Bee-Ark in the Garden of Eden called Adman and Eve, Arthur and Ford would discover a doorway leading to a flight of stairs stretching off into infinity, and eventually a lift that would take them to anywhere in Earth's past or future. But sadly, owing to Adams' reluctance to work with the first series producer-director Alan Bell once more, a second series was never forthcoming. A final interesting tidbit of noteworthy information is that post the publication of Life, the Universe and Everything, there was some speculative talk of a remount of a second series produced by Spitting Image Productions. This iteration would have actually been more of a straight adaptation of the aforementioned novel. If you've watched my reviews of the novels and, indeed, the radio series, you will already be aware of my issues with Life and the problems that an adaptation of that work would suffer from. And while this was not the worst idea in the world, if anything, the people behind Spitting Image would have no doubt made a better second head for Zaphod. As we heard in 2004, a faithful adaptation of life would have, like the novel, suffered when it came to issues of tonal inconsistency. Ultimately, I suspect, my main issue would have been that, much like the secondary phase on radio, it just would not have lived up to the first series, which is now ever destined to remain one of those bits of nostalgic cult television which burnt brightly in the TV schedules all too briefly, only to never be seen again.